MVC? Is Caitlin headed for an MVP season with the WNBA? Ed, is 15 going to be QB1 for Vegas? We'll ask Charles Davis what he thinks now that the draft dust is settled. Ed, Jaylen jolting somewhere else? Should Jaylen Brown be playing somewhere other than Boston? Figure it all out. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We are stacked for the next 2 hours with everything you could possibly need to know. Some great guests to get into. In Caroline, we get right to NBA action from last night because the playoffs are absolutely hopping. And we knew that there was going to be some desperation from Philly after they get just absolutely hammered in game one. They come back and they give the Knicks everything they can in game two, only to come up short. The Knicks take the 2-0 lead, but maybe the most consequential play of this late in the game, OG Anunoby comes up limp. He jumps up. You see when he lands, he's a little bit finicky. He gets the ball, and where he would usually thunder dunk instead, he comes up a little bit of limp. Before you know it, it looks like he's got a hamstring issue. He has to leave the game. What's our level of concern for the Knicks now if they miss OG for any amount of time?
Well, I definitely think it's concerning because OG's been such a huge part of this Knicks surge. After those first couple of rough games against the Atlanta Hawks, OG Anunoby has been such a pivotal part of what the Knicks want to do. We knew Cat and Brunson were going to be pivotal if the Knicks were going to advance to the NBA Finals. We understood that, but it's Mikal Bridges and what he has done in the last 2 games against the Hawks and the first 2 games against the Sixers, and it's also OG. You know, we talked to Ian Begley yesterday, who covers the Knicks for SNY TV. And we talked with him about how OG Anunoby's play has escalated exponentially. His field goal percentage, his 3-point percentage, points per game, rebounds per game, pretty much every single statistical category. OG Anunoby hasn't just leveled up a little bit from the regular season to the postseason. He has leveled up significantly. So he has been a massive part of what the Knicks want to do. Now, keep in mind, too, that the Sixers could be without Joel Embiid for an extended period of time. We learned yesterday that Joel Embiid was going to be out for game 2. And while the Sixers were able to keep this game close, they were up at halftime. It was a back-and-forth game. There were more lead changes than we have seen in any other NBA postseason game in NBA history. The biggest lead of the game was, 7 points? Like, this was an incredibly back-and-forth game, even without Joel Embiid. So if you're a Sixers fan, you're starting to figure out, you're trying to put the pieces together of how they could get themselves back in this series. But also, you saw in that fourth quarter, I mean, the Sixers were absolutely gassed. I mean, you had to see Tyrese Maxey play 47 minutes. Paul George played 43. And you saw that usage, and you saw just the number of minutes that they had to play, the volume that they had to play that really caught up with them. So you're seeing that on the Sixers side of things. So the question of, will OG's availability and OG's health impact this game? I think you also have to bring up Joel Embiid's health. And because clearly that impacted the Sixers yesterday. Clearly that impacted the amount of minutes that the majority of the Sixers team had to play. How does the loss of OG affect the Knicks? I think it's a big hit. And I do think that the Sixers can at least find a way to win one game in this series, regardless of whether we see Joel Embiid or not.
Look, I continue to look back at what we saw last night. And for anyone that may not have watched the game, the Sixers took a lead, and after they took a late lead, they then missed 9 of their next 10 three-pointers. And they were getting open looks. This wasn't like somebody's right in their face, 2 hands in their face. They got open look after open look, couldn't get it to fall. Now, maybe that is in part to the point that you just made. The number of minutes guys are playing, your legs start to get tired, the jumpers don't fall. I understand that. But if I'm Philly, I feel pretty good about where I sit. If I'm the Knicks, am I concerned about losing OG Anunoby? Of course I am. But I think that can't open the door to excuses, because when we look at the way that the East has fallen together so far, the 76ers have been without Joel Embiid and still were in that game, right? We've already seen the Celtics, who we thought were going to be the most dominant team in the East, fall in these playoffs. We've seen, at best, inconsistency from Detroit. Nobody's really scared of Cleveland because at the end of the day, they still have guys that forget out of basketball in key moments, right? So if we look across the East, even without OG, I struggle to find sort of an excuse for the Knicks. It is a substantial loss. I'm not saying it's not a substantial loss. I am saying that even with that substantial loss, I don't know how it can change the expectation that we have, considering the fact that the rest of the East has fallen the way that it's fallen. So, yeah, I do believe it's concerning anytime you lose somebody that means as much as OG means. And we don't know, as we record right now, we don't know how long this loss is going to be. Is it a quick thing? Is it a 2-month thing? That will all change our level of conversation about this. But today, as we sit, if I'm the Knicks, man, I got to look at it and say, well, find a way. Next man up. Because certainly the loss of OG Anunoby can't, to me, be more substantial than the loss of Joel Embiid has been for the 76ers all the time, right? So I feel like even though I acquiesce it's a significant loss, it doesn't create an excuse. And if I'm Philly, Caroline, I'm not worried at all. I'm down 2-0, and I'm not worried at all because I lost 2 games in the Garden. We all know that's the way it goes in the NBA. We know that it's not really a series till you lose at home, right? We're going to go back to Philly, and we're going to see what actually transfers from this. The fact that Philly was so much more competitive in Game 2 just shows us that Game 1 may have been the outlier here. Everybody can take a deep breath. I still think we're in for a long, difficult series.
If you're the Sixers, you're not concerned. I mean, you're down 2-0. And yes, at least you get to go home. And yes, you would assume that the Knicks will be without OG for at least a game. And that's the tricky thing about a hamstring, right? A hamstring injuries, there really is no timeline. Like, it can rear its ugly head at any point, and a hamstring injury is really going to linger. Like, if OG comes back, when OG comes back, he's still going to be dealing with a hamstring injury. That's just soft tissue injuries are tricky. So, yeah, you can find reasons for optimism, but still, in a game where the Sixers were shot out of a cannon, where you get 19 points on 18 shots from Paul George, when you get Tyrese Maxey dropping 26, VJ Edgecombe, the rookie, getting his first taste of NBA postseason, dropping 17 points and going 3 of 7 from 3. When it looked like this was the Sixers' game to win, when it felt like the Sixers were playing with this certain level of an edge and a certain level of intensity and a certain level of, we are not coming out of the Garden down 2 games, they still lost that game. Now, I know they were without Joel Embiid. I do understand that. But I think that there's 2 ways to look at it. Of, we were so close in that game without Joel Embiid, so how much more, confident can we look? How much better can we be against this team once Joel Embiid is plugged back into the lineup? Or you could look at it and say, we gave them literally all we could give them, and we still fell short.
I struggle with that because maybe this is where I'm giving too much benefit of the doubt to the Garden and benefit of the doubt to the experience around New York and benefit of the doubt to what home court means at times. And this has been a debate throughout these playoffs because Game 7 home court success hasn't been the same. And I even heard Reggie Miller talking about the fact that, frankly, for players, it doesn't really matter. Where you're playing doesn't matter. During the broadcast, he was talking about the fact that it matters more to the refs than it does to the players. An interesting point. I still think, though, if you're Philly, and the way you got just thumped in Game 1, when you come back in Game 2 and you walk away from it saying, hey, they didn't beat us in some miraculous way, our shots stopped falling. Now, of course, that's probably the same thing the Celtics are saying about the way that they lost to Philly. So I understand sort of the roundabout on it. I feel pretty good about it. The curiosity to me is going to be what happens with Embiid, right? Like, because if you're the 76ers, the big conversation today is, are the 76ers better without Embiid? Because look at how competitive they were. I'm not going to buy into that. I'm not going to buy into the belief that the 76ers are a better basketball team without one of the best players in the world. They just got to get him healthy. And I realize that in and of itself, that's like asking me to dunk on a 12-foot rim. Like, it's a great idea. It just doesn't really happen all the time. I get it. But at some point, to me, the rest of this series is going to be about who's healthy as much as it's about anything else. If OG Anunoby surprisingly, shockingly comes right back, doesn't miss any time, then look, that's a huge advantage for the Knicks. If Joel Embiid comes back into this series and all of a sudden comes in and is bam, like we're seeing a healthy Joel Embiid, that's a huge advantage to Philly. I don't want to be a cop-out, but it's hard for me right now to make a sweeping statement about this series until we know who's going to be healthy on the court for the rest of it. So I'm not in panic mode yet, but yes, certainly the 76ers backs are against the wall. Down 2-0, going home, and not wanting to take the chance to be down 3-0. Also, worth pointing out, as Caroline pointed out, the number of minutes guys played. We're on an every other night schedule now for the NBA playoffs. So you've got a quick bounce about it. Paul George is too old to be played that many minutes, and 2 nights later, Caroline, be right back on the court.
It's elder abuse. Elder
Yeah,
abuse for Paul George to play 43 minutes. And there was such a palpable difference. I don't care if you're 21 years old and a rookie in the league, or if you're Paul George. How old is Paul George? Like mid 30s? With a lot of miles on his body. Like, I don't care how old you are. Playing 43 minutes is an absolute insanity. And there was such a palpable difference. George in the first quarter literally could not miss. Like, Paul George was like, I got this. I can carry this team on my shoulders. And then in the fourth quarter, it was like just throwing up a prayer and hoping that something fell. But that's really how it felt for the entirety of the Sixers team. And I think that's also where you feel the loss of Joel Embiid is not just losing one of the biggest, most physical, dominant defensive presences in the NBA when Joel Embiid is healthy and playing at his peak and playing up to his ceiling, but it's also when he's out of the lineup, everyone else has to pick up the rest of the slack, which I think is also logic that you can apply to the New York Knicks. With OG, who steps in? Without OG, then, who, whether it's Cat or whether it's Jalen Brunson, how much more can you ask Jalen Brunson really to do after he played 41 minutes and dropped 26 points last night? Who on that Knicks team is able to step up? Because we saw Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, even in a losing effort, step up in Joel Embiid's absence. Probably because they've grown accustomed to Joel Embiid's absence. Who on the Knicks side of things is able to fill in for what they're losing in OG Anunoby? I would assume. I mean, we don't have a timeline. We don't have definitive answers or clarity on exactly what OG's injury looks like, but I would say we can assume to not see OG for at least game 3.
Paul George is 36 years old. I will remind everybody there are 36-year-olds watching whose thumbs get tired playing 43 straight minutes of NBA 2K. So the fact that he played the actual game for that many minutes is worth noting. All right. Speaking of results that we got last night, we also got an absolute hammering, an absolute blowout, and a lesson, really. We were given a lesson last night by the San Antonio Spurs, and that lesson is we shan't make big sweeping takes after one game, because I saw plenty of people, Kendrick Perkins, I love you, buddy, saying, oh my God, the sky is falling. The Spurs are dead. They lost game 1 to the Wolves. Look at what we got. And then last night, 133-95 in a game that frankly didn't even feel that close. I mean, 133-95, the Spurs smoked the Wolves. What do we make of it?
It could have been more. I mean, it's a 38-point win. Could have been 50. Could have been 60. But like in the fourth quarter, the Spurs were like, everyone sit the bench. Hey, you in the stands, you want to come play? Here's a jersey. Like, you just finish out this game. It could have been way worse of a beatdown from the San Antonio Spurs. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. Because it might be easy logic for us as sports fans and people who do what we do to say, you get embarrassed on your home court game 1, that you come back with the thunder of the gods in game 2. That's, I think, fair to assume that we could have seen that. Let's remember, this is a very young Spurs team. That Victor Wembanyama is getting his first taste of the NBA postseason. That, really, what kind of experience do they have in the postseason? De'Aaron Fox played, one postseason series with the Sacramento Kings? What else? Like, what other postseason experience do they have? This is such a green and young team. So keep that in mind, that it could be really easy for a young team to get clapped in game 1 and then tuck their tail between their legs and, almost, just kind of falter in the moment, that the lights get too big, that the moment is too big, that there's too much pressure on their shoulders. Because the NBA postseason is different, and you have to have experience, I think, in that moment to be able to learn how to adjust in the postseason and be a goldfish and forget about the last game. So credit to this young team, credit to Wemby, the leader of that team, for being able to take the beating in game 1 and say, no, we're not going to let you do that again on our home court, and to be able to bounce back the way that they did. Very impressive kind of veteran leadership from such a young team.
Wemby was unstoppable on the boards. 15 rebounds in this game. And by the way, it just felt like he used go-go gadget arms constantly, Inspector Gadget arms, to just get the ball over everybody. I've spent 48 hours listening to, oh my God, what a perfect game plan to stop Wemby. Rudy Gobert is on one. I can't believe what he's done. I will remind everybody, last night, Rudy was minus 23 when he was on the floor. So maybe before we anoint all of this is just an absolute, they've got it figured out. This is what everybody this is what everybody needs to do moving forward against Wemby. Oh, look at the brilliant coaching. Look at maybe we just give it a second. Maybe we take a beat and let the whole playoff series play out, because 133-95.
Why would we do that?
You're right. That is, frankly, that's the truest thing Caroline's ever said. Stephen A. never waits, and he makes a lot more money than all of us combined. So he's doing something right. All right, plenty more NBA action to break down through the playoffs. But coming up next, the W starts this weekend, and that has all eyes on Caitlin Clark. What should the expectation be? We'll tell you next.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side, how do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield, down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, like, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Jaylen Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because you'll get crushed.
You see in front of you the WNBA MVP player odds. A'ja Wilson, the shortest odds, plus 225. Caitlin Clark right behind her at plus 250. Some notable names there we all know. See Paige Beckers at plus 1,600 coming in at number 5 on this list. Season starts this weekend. So, simple question, complicated answer. Will Caitlin Clark win the MVP this year, Caroline?
Season starts this weekend. Woohoo! 30th year of the W. I picked Caitlin Clark to win MVP. If you want to go back, Cassandra Negley and I did a full breakdown on all of our preseason predictions, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Finals predictions. You can find all of that on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page and on your preferred podcast platform. Shameless plug there. I did pick Caitlin Clark to win MVP for a couple of reasons. One, to win MVP, you have to have a competitive basketball team. You have to be on a postseason playoff team that looks like a legitimate championship contender. The Fever were one game away from the WNBA Finals last year without Sophie Cunningham, without Ari McDonald, without Sydney Colson, without Caitlin Clark, and for a couple of games without MVP candidate Kelsey Mitchell. So if you would assume that all of those players are back and healthy, Caitlin Clark is back and healthy, then the Fever can find themselves right back where they were. So she checks that box. We know Caitlin Clark can pack a box score. We know that Caitlin Clark can put up some gaudy numbers. We know that Caitlin Clark makes those pop off the page from the logo 3-point shots. That kind of impact matters when you're talking about most valuable player. I also think, and it is not bad or unfair to point out, cultural impact. Let's remember that these are humans that vote on this award, that there are inherent human biases that exist, whether you're the most impartial reporter in the whole entire world, there is still a bias that exists when you are a human being. Caitlin Clark will always be a headline. Caitlin Clark will always command the conversations around the WNBA. Caitlin Clark will always be there anytime any conversation is surrounding women's basketball. I do think that matters. And I'll also be honest with everybody. I think that if I was a betting woman, and I said this on Hoops 360, if I was a betting woman, I would probably bet on A'ja Wilson. Pretty safe bet, right? 4-time MVP. Has won 3 championships in the last 4 years. She's the best player on the planet. Like, yeah, I would say that's the safest bet if you're trying to make a little bit of money. But what's the fun in that? I picked Caitlin Clark to an MVP because it was just something that was a little bit different. So I think that, Caitlin Clark, you're seeing in the Vegas odds. And I think that she checks all of those boxes of being an MVP caliber player.
So there is no bigger star in the WNBA than Caitlin Clark. There are very few stars in all of sports that are more important than Caitlin Clark or more recognizable than Caitlin Clark. You cannot deny the greatness of Caitlin Clark. However, to me, as you just mentioned, the best player in the WNBA is on the best team in the WNBA, that has the best coach in the WNBA, that has the best practice facilities in the WNBA, that is a living, breathing, eating dynasty right now, and that's the Vegas Aces. That's A'ja Wilson. That's Becky Hammon. You go up and down the list. There is absolutely no reason, even with the modern construct that we now have of the new collective bargaining agreement, nothing about my opinion about Vegas has changed. They are the most dominant team in the WNBA. There is no reason, as their roster is currently constructed, to think that they won't be back in and win the finals, to win a championship. We ask all the time what success or failure is. Anything short of a championship for Vegas is a failure simply because they do it over and over and over again. And they do it because they have the best player in the world. They do it also because they have the best player in the world that nobody can stop. There just isn't a person in the league that can truly match up with A'ja Wilson. And because of the proximity she plays to the rim, like, you can have a bad shooting night. I know Caitlin almost never does, but you can have a bad shooting night. Not likely for A'ja Wilson. On top of that, you got to be healthy for the grind. How often have we seen Caitlin Clark make it through a season healthy? So certainly I never wish injury on anybody, but if I'm betting my money right now on who I think is going to be the most dominant team, on the most dominant player, I should say, on the most dominant team that's most likely to win a championship and also more likely to stay healthy throughout the duration of the season, I am describing A'ja Wilson. And I know A'ja Wilson does not move the needle to people that don't pay attention to the W the same way Caitlin Clark does. And I understand why Caitlin winning an MVP is important. I really do. I just think that through that importance, we can't overlook greatness. Right now, again, Vegas has given us a dynasty, like it or not. A'ja Wilson belongs on the Mount Rushmore all-time of the greatest WNBA players we've ever seen, like it or not. And she's in her prime on a team that's poised to win a championship. I can't find math that doesn't send A'ja Wilson to the MVP, because I can't find math that doesn't have her the best player on the best team, Caroline. So I hear you, too, that there's going to be a ton of momentum for Caitlin. I just think A'ja right now is a better player on a better team.
I don't argue with any of that. Like, there's nothing that I disagree. Like, me saying that picking Caitlin Clark to win MVP is not because I hate A'ja Wilson. Okay, it's not because I hate the Las Vegas Aces. Everybody, let's calm down a little bit. Like, I do not have any pushback to that. The Las Vegas Aces are a dynasty. A'ja Wilson is one of the greatest players in the history of the WNBA, and she's still writing her legacy. The reason why we saw the odds up there momentarily, or just a moment ago, Breanna Stewart is up there in MVP odds. I think Sabrina Ionescu can also belong in the MVP conversation. The reason why I didn't pick Stewie or Sabrina Ionescu to win MVP is because both of them are MVP candidates. And then when you throw in Jonquel Jones into the mix as well, when you throw Satu Sabli into the mix and who's signing for the New York Liberty, that team is just so stacked. And when you have players that are clearly far and beyond the best players on their team, like A'ja is for the Aces, like Fee is for the Minnesota Lynx, it's just that not one of them can clearly, in my opinion, emerge as the MVP when you have a stacked super team and each player has their own kind of role carved out for them. So that's the only reason why, like, if you want to bet on this award, I wouldn't bet on Stewie or Sabrina, because both of them are MVP caliber players, and it's almost like they're canceling each other out by competing with one another.
Well, and look, I mean, I think sometimes we expect historic things, right? Like Asia averaged 26.8 in 2024. That's the highest points per game in a season. 26.8 in 2024. I think to be an MVP, Caitlin would have to top that. Caitlin would have to put up record numbers. And my concern is I'm not sure usage necessarily allows that to happen. Like our expectation for Caitlin is that she's the Michael Jordan of the WNBA, which means the expectation is that she's constantly the scoring leader. I just don't know the way that Indiana runs and the way that their offense goes, and also by nature of the positions they play and the way that they score, I don't know that the usage rate's going to allow that to happen for her, Caroline.
Yeah, I don't think that Caitlin has to top Asia's 26.8 points per game in 2024 to be the MVP. Because, like, you're not comparing a player in 2026 to what somebody did in 2024. Like, you're comparing that player to the rest of the league and the landscape of the rest of the league. But I'm with you. Like Asia Wilson is used more than any other player in the WNBA. Asia Wilson has far and beyond the highest usage rates in the entire league. I think if the Fever were smart, they would bring Caitlin along slowly. Caitlin's been dealing with a lot of soft tissue injuries. And so I think that the Fever are going to be very strategic in the way that they use Caitlin. She's not going to be out there playing like 95% of individual games, especially if the Indiana Fever are up big or down big. I just think the Fever are going to be more strategic with her usage. And also, let's remember, Kelsey Mitchell was an MVP finalist last year. So Kelsey Mitchell is also going to be a focal point of this team. And it's not just Caitlin Clark and everybody else. There are a lot of other secondary or even, let's just say, primary scorers. Like Kelsey Mitchell was the cog of that Indiana Fever team this past season. So I think that with, the supplemental scoring on the Indiana Fever, and also the fact that I think the Fever should be very strategic in their usage of Caitlin, that the 26.8 threshold, I wouldn't bet on Caitlin topping that, just because I don't think her usage is going to be the same as Asia's period, but especially Asia's in 2024 when she set that benchmark of nearly 27 points per game.
I also weirdly think, as much as we look today and we talk about the MVPs and we talk about the accolades, when you're the star that Caitlin is, if your team goes out and wins, if your team is in this thing in the end, you sort of win. Like I struggle to put this like it's failure or success based on whether or not she gets an MVP. Like that to me feels like such a weird line in the sand. Like there's nothing that's going to happen, literally nothing that will happen this year that will change the fact that Caitlin Clark is the biggest star in the sport, right? So I just think that to continue that, what's best for Caitlin and what's best for this team and what's best for the W, what's best for everybody involved in these Caitlin conversations is for Indiana to be great. And that's a really simple answer to a complex conversation. I struggle to, I know we have MVP expectations, but I think we also need to understand that even above and beyond personal accolades, Caitlin will always be defined for the exposure that she has and the way that we view her and the way that we view Indiana. Plenty more to come on this WNBA season that tips off this weekend. We can't wait for it. We will cover it extensively on this show. But coming up next, can't wait for this one. Charles Davis going to join us. We'll get his thoughts now that the dust is settled on the draft. How we feeling about Fernando? We'll find out.
Kick is on the way. And Dante Wright will bring it out of the end zone. Right across the 5, the 10, the 15. Right across the 20. Into New Mexico territory. 15, 10, 5. Does he get in?
He did.
Touchdown,
he did.
Pirates.
Dante Wright goes back. He played like a center fielder at Yankee Stadium and then takes it the length of the building. The young man was electric on that kick return.
Do you not enjoy this?
No.
Would you rather not do it?
That's not in the cards.
Why not?
It's not an option. I've worked so hard for so long. I've built myself up to a position and I've dug myself into a hole.
But I feel like you've reached a point in your life where, correct me if I'm wrong, you could do other things.
What am I going to do? There's nothing like a fight night check. That's the beauty of fighting.
Let's get to your next winner here, Boone. And this time we're not talking about a rookie. We're talking about a veteran fallout. Who's a winner to you from the NFL draft?
I think Rashee Rice has to be mentioned, right? Now he doesn't have any additional new competition that we have to worry about, especially a guy like Tate could have shown up there and been that true outside receiver for them. But we're looking at his fantasy outlook right now, and fantasy-wise, this year and beyond, it still looks pretty good. He survived the draft.
Edwards has got it. Throw, tip, intercepted. Destin Mack, the INT. And he makes the biggest play of the game defensively for Orlando.
Great coverage on the back end by the Orlando Pirates. 4th down and 4. Destin Mack in coverage. Big time hit by Kyrie Coleman leads to the interception.
Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis trading blows. Who would have thought that this synergy would bring us first take here in the 7th round of the draft as they were debating the playing time for Fernando Mendoza. And he joins us now. One of my favorite guys in all of media covering football in general, Charles Davis. Appreciate your time, NFL Network analyst. Thanks for hanging out with us. In that fairness, I got to reveal this to you in case you don't know. I've got a Raiders helmet behind me and a signed Max Crosby jersey behind me. My fandom, I got a Raiders tattoo, Charles, all right? So I'm in this thing. I'm watching you tell me that Fernando's going to play. I'm watching Jeremiah say he's not going to play. The dust is settled. Now that the dust is settled, how do we feel about the argument? What's the future look like for Fernando?
Well, Jason, hi, Caroline. Thanks for having me on. First, before we even get to that question, were you old enough for the Sea of Hands play? Clarence Davis against the Dolphins in the playoffs?
I was a little, it was a little before my time. So
were you old enough for Ghost to the Post? Raiders versus
little before
Baltimore?
Little before my time.
Plunkett winning 2 Super Bowls after being on the scrap heap of quarterbacks and being resurrected.
Now,
Rod Martin.
Now we're talking.
Now we're getting there, right?
Now we're getting there. Now we're getting there.
Kenny King 80 yards on a broken play in the Super Bowl. Now I'm starting to hit your wheelhouse.
Now we're getting there. Come on. Come on.
All right. Now we're there. Now let's get to present day, the Las Vegas Raiders. And I remember last year asking one more time, what does the fan base from back in the Bay Area still constitute? How much do you still have? And I think it's still over 10% season tickets still come from the Bay Area that come in for games. So Raider fandom is real. We know that. Look, DJ and I, brothers are going to fight, right? So it's going to happen occasionally. He had a strong opinion about what Tom Brady has said about quarterbacking these days and how quarterbacking needs to change. And we're developing quarterbacks poorly. And I don't think that in a lot of ways he's wrong. But when you're in the middle of the deal, and whatever extent Tom is involved, I'm going to take them at their word that they call him every day to ask him questions, even if he's not around, okay? If that's the case, DJ makes a compelling argument that they're going to do something different by bringing in Kirk Cousins, making him the number 1, letting Mendoza come along slowly, and off we went. The funny part was, as you noticed, by the end of our argument, we were apart by about just a few games about how many Fernando Mendoza would play. I went conservative with he would have 12 starts this year. Personally, I think he should have the ball from day one. I don't know why you're waiting, all right? He's a mature young man. They did a lot of great stuff in the offseason to try and make this team better. Is Kirk Cousins going to win you extra games during that time? I don't think so. I think we're at that stage where Kirk should be a mentor rather than a frontline player. I know he still wants to be that guy. And my argument was very simply this. How many times have the two of you seen a quarterback drafted, a GM, team president, owner go to the podium and tell the world, we're going to bring him along slowly. We're going to redshirt him. We've got a veteran here. And by game 3, he's starting. Okay? That's my whole point about the whole thing. Tom Brady, is he really going to have the influence? Is he going to break the chains? Is he going to stand by what he has said and make sure that Fernando Mendoza sits? DJ ultimately said he starts by like week 7. I'm like, hold it, you just told me this guy's going to sit all year because of Tom Brady. I think that he should have the ball from day one. I think DJ's argument is compelling if Brady and his group stand up to their word. But the history of these guys, and I'm going to stop this rant here, okay? I went back to 1970, and I had research poll that said Quarterback drafted number 1 overall. When did he get the ball to start the season? 1970. The first quarterback off the board. I know Plunkett came off in 71. Terry Bradshaw, 70. Bartkowski, 75. They all started week 1. So it's not a new thing. It's not like we just started doing this. It's like this forever. That's why I think that if you go back and look, the number 1 overall pick, quarterback, most times they get the ball week 1. Rare that they sit for very long. That's just my argument. But brothers fight. I love him. We hugged it out. We're great. But, I still disagree with his opinion.
And this is one of my favorite debates in football, because wherever you might stand, whether you are pro rookie quarterback sits or pro rookie quarterback plays, you have plenty of data points to support your opinion. If you want the quarterback to sit, you look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Tom Brady and say, look how sitting helped them in their career. If you say, nope, start him right away, you have Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow, Peyton Manning, all of these great quarterbacks that started their careers right away. So I think it's a fascinating argument, and there's not really one right answer. But I want to stick on your. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Carol. My apologies for jumping in, because I think we're in the same spot.
No, all good.
There is no one great argument for it, right? It depends on the whole thing. But totally what it comes down to is, how are you coaching this young man? How are you bringing him along? What are you putting around him to give him his best opportunity to be successful? Peyton Manning had a rough rookie year, set a record for interceptions, and he's still waiting. Hey, can someone break this for me, please? As a rookie quarterback, break my interception record. But he persevered, had the toughness about him. They got better pretty quickly. I still remember when Matt Ryan got drafted number 3 overall, I believe. Everybody was telling the Falcons, don't do it because your team's not ready for it. But Thomas Dimitroff, the GM, not only did he draft him instead of Glenn Dorsey, that was the big debate at the time, the D tackle from LSU. He got Michael the Burner Turner as a tailback in free agency. He went back into the first round, got Sam Baker as a left tackle, and they built around him. And they went 11-5 his rookie year when everyone said, don't do it. So it really comes back to me, how are you coaching these young people? How are you developing them? Sam Darnold has his hand raised right now, like, yeah, wish the Jets had done that with me. I mean, you might have gotten this when I was in New York, as opposed to me going to Minnesota and Seattle and getting it. So it is an age-old debate. And the Tom Brady one always comes up. I always want to say that is the ultimate extreme outlier, because he was a 6th-round pick who never should have played. That's the whole point. You don't draft 6th-round quarterbacks, expect them to take the ball and be your guy. Never, ever, 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 ever. Tom Brady just destroyed that. But how many other 6th-round quarterbacks can you name that you said, hey, I'm going to give them the ball and they're going to be my guy? Most of the time you get your quarterback early. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-rounder. And you remember that year, Seattle had signed Matt Flynn in free agency. I would have loved to have been there when Paul Allen was running that team. And John Schneider and Pete Carroll will look at each other and going, you remember how we convinced Mr. Allen to give up all the money for Matt Flynn? Now we got to go in and tell him that the 3rd-round guy really should be the quarterback. And they did it. The 3 of us all know that when they left that room, Paul Allen said, oh, yeah, one more thing, guys. You better be right. And they were, and it paid off for them. So you are so right, Caroline. It's an age-old debate. To me, it's much more, how are you building around them? And I think what the Raiders have done in offseason and in the draft have helped Fernando Mendoza in a big way. They still need more weapons outside. The people on the perimeter will scare no one, okay? But they got better in the offensive line. Bowers is one of the elite tight ends. They have a runner they believe in Genti. Let's see where it goes. I just don't think he's going to sit that long.
All right, so let's stick with quarterbacks, Charles, but let's go to a couple others, because the Panthers and Texans have both picked up the 5th-year options for Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, who came from the same draft and had 2 very different introductions, right? C.J. Stroud was supposed to be anointed. Bryce was supposed to be out of the league, right? So now that we are where we are with them, which of those 2 quarterbacks do you think is more likely to get that long-term extension and stick with their team?
Oh, it's one of the great questions. I still come back to C.J. Stroud because of what I've seen in terms of how he has played so far. I know that our last view of him was not a great one in last year's playoffs. Didn't play very well down the stretch. But the team that he has around him, the talent base that is there, if he is ready to go this year and now is getting coached the way that he expects to be coached, because early on, it felt like that wasn't working. Remember, they moved on from his first offensive coordinator. They've moved on from his quarterbacks coach. If they have the people in place now that he believes in and he brings his talent to the table, I do believe he's the one. But I understand why both of them got their fifth-year option picked up. You look out the quarterbacking landscape, it's easy to say, let's go back into the draft and get one. Between the three of us, did we not hear last year that 2026 would be a great year for college quarterbacks? How'd that turn out? Now we're looking at 2027. What are we hearing? Oh my God, it's going to be a bonanza for college quarterbacks. Okay, let's wait and see. All right, let's just hold on here and wait and see. But if you're saying I get my quarterback next year, I know I am. You don't know where you're picking. You don't know who's going to be good. You don't know how it's going to break down. To me, it's folly. That's why you end up picking up the fifth-year options for guys, even if you're kind of teetering with them a little bit. Young and his team, they got into the playoffs. His numbers will not look, they're not even going to raise your eyebrows. But he played well down the stretch in big games when they needed it, and that's what they had to have. Early on, this was a mismatch. CJ Stroud was the guy. He's kind of come back to the pack. He needs to reassert himself in Houston.
I want to stick on the theme of quarterbacks because there's been a lot of conversation about Aaron Rodgers' future. We know that Pittsburgh placed the tag on him, the right of first refusal tag, but there's been a lot of, fodder about Aaron Rodgers going to the Arizona Cardinals, right? We've seen this, Aaron Rodgers head coach with the last name LaFleur pairing before. So do you think that there's any sort of legitimacy to these rumors about Aaron Rodgers to Arizona, or is Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh an inevitability?
I feel like it's the latter. I'm not saying that there's nothing to the rumors. There's always conversation. There's always stuff to put out there. And let's face it, we're in a business where we're talking to people all the time, and we may very well hear things like that. I just think it's much more the latter. I feel like it's Pittsburgh or nowhere because of what I watched Arizona do in the offseason. Right? You mentioned LaFleur. Mike LaFleur is now their head coach. Well, who did they bring to town? Carson Beck in the third round of the draft, who's already on the roster. Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew, both players that you can operate a team with. You're hoping Beck can come and assert himself and be the young quarterback you can build around. That's what they're hoping for. I don't know that you want to go now and go get Aaron Rodgers and just start the whole process over. Everyone wait a whole nother year again, especially with a guy like Beck, because you need to find out early on Carson Beck. Is he the Carson Beck we thought in 2024 could be the number one pick in the draft? Or is he the Carson Beck that we saw kind of like we still have question marks about? He played better last year, got to a college football playoff, but he's not looked at as the same Carson Beck as we saw going into the 24 season. So I don't know if you want to delay that one. And if you're Pittsburgh, you're waiting because you simply believe you do not have a quarterback on your roster that you can go and play with. And Mr. Rooney has always said and continues to say, we are not a tear it down, rebuild franchise. I feel like I'm cheating our fans. We're trying to win each and every year. If they thought they could win with Will Howard or Mason Rudolph, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And now they've drafted Drew Aller, who I think is a year away coming off of a knee injury last year. He'll fight it out with Howard down the road at the very least.
Should that be the Steelers' approach to just continue to try and win, or should they rip it down to their studs?
I'm an old school guy. I'm all about trying to win all the time. I really am. I'm just this tear it down to the studs and start over and tell everyone to be patient and the whole deal. When you have a base and you have players there, I'm for it. And I think it bears repeating and remembering that playoff game against Houston. That did come back to the offense of Pittsburgh being abysmal. It was a 7-6 game into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And then the wheels came off because the defense could only hold so long. Aaron Rodgers and crew have to be better on offense. It's that simple. And I believe if he's going to play this year, it will be with Pittsburgh. I'm not a big person on tearing it down to the studs, but they've got to make some big-time moves and figure out who's going to be their quarterback for the future. Aller looks the part. He looks like a Pittsburgh quarterback that's won games. He's built like Bradshaw. He's built like Big Ben. Aaron Rodgers, a big, strong guy who plays from the pocket. That's a Pittsburgh quarterback. That's what they've used for years. But I'm not a big believer in tearing it down and saying, hey, Steeler fans, see you in 3 years.
I do want to go back to
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Caroline. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, all
Modern
good. I
technology.
do want to go back to our conversation about, Wi-Fi, can't live with it, can't live without it. Our conversation about CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. You mentioned how CJ Stroud looked like the dude in his rookie season. It was rookie of the year for a reason.
Yes.
Explain that fall off to me. How does that happen? Is it more of a result of what's around him? Do we see just natural regression from quarterbacks? How do we diagnose the regression that we've seen from CJ Stroud?
Great question. And without being on internally and being in their doors all day, I'll give you a few educated guesses about the whole thing. One, we do have regression at times. That's not exactly regression, but can we go baseball for a little bit? Can we go do a quick baseball analogy?
Heck yeah.
You know that great hitter that you brought up from AAA, and he goes through the first 2 weeks and he's hitting 445 and he's hitting a couple bombs, and this guy looks like the deal. And then he goes through the league again, and they've had time to watch. They've watched the tape. They see where it is. And all of a sudden, he's hitting 175 because he hasn't made the adjustments yet. But the good ones come back and make the adjustments and become guys. CJ Stroud had the rookie year. The second year wasn't quite as good, although he was terrific in the playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers. But all in all, you got a year's worth of tape that you deal with. People then throw different things at you. What's your adjustment? Second thing, you notice his original offensive coordinator, no longer there. His original quarterbacks coach, no longer there. Was there something there that wasn't working for CJ Stroud and they weren't connected? Can't say 100% on that one, but typically when it's working, people stay in place. They choose, typically the quarterback, especially the youngster, may get a little bit more of the stroke from a team. Now he's got to go ahead and show the world that he's adapted to everything that's going on. And the biggest one for him, he's got to show his resiliency. Because the playoffs, as you guys know, was not great, to put it mildly. He wasn't the reason they beat Pittsburgh, okay? He was a big reason why they got clobbered in the second game. So all of that has to come into play for him now. Is he studying hard enough? Is he putting the time in? Is he doing all the offseason stuff? All those things become an issue when you're not winning games, and they become questions. I don't know the answer. All I know is that it's out there for him, and we've seen him do it. So I don't believe that there's any chance he can't do it again. He obviously can, but he needs to jump on it because, as you pointed out, that rookie year, people in Carolina were like, we took the wrong quarterback. Oh, my God, we took the wrong one. Everybody lost their mind. You want to hear the irony of that rookie year? They met head-to-head, Carolina, Houston. Guess who won? Carolina. I mean,
Carolina.
Who knew? So you never know how it's going to work out.
You guys can watch him on the NFL Network. Charles, huge fans of your work. Thanks for the time, man. It's just great to get to hang out with you. We love your expertise. Thanks for joining us. Got to do it again sometime.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me. I got to come hang out with you guys on the IFL. I was just remembering my Arena Football League days and loved it. I want to come hang out and watch you guys do your thing. I won't get in the way, I promise. I just want to hang out.
Anytime
come on down.
Come to an IFL game, we will get you the royal treatment, Charles. We got you on that. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks a lot. Continued success to you both.
It's great stuff from Charles Davis. Watch him on the NFL Network like we all do. Coming up next, can that man fix the Mavs? We'll tell you.
This is rich to me, but again, this is this draft class. Once you get outside the top 10, it's like whatever. But I do think this is a little rich to me. But Les Snead loves his Bama guys. I know he went to Auburn, but he has a thing for anyone that's played in the SEC in the South. He really does. You should have seen his write-up on Julio Jones. It was like fan fiction. This to me is just like, all right, I get your argument. At 13, like that is, you're pushing it. You have one of the best rosters in the NFL right now. Right. This could be a difference maker at some position.
Now, I said to a reporter today, tell me the top 5 stars in the UFC right now. Islam.
Yep, I agree.
Tom Aspinall.
Okay.
Pereira.
Yep. Ilya Taporia.
Yes, he said him.
Khamzat Chimaev.
Yes, and him. I think that was the 5.
Okay.
And I was like, I just feel like right now, I look at Tom Aspinall and think, you are one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Give us your final loser here, Boone. Denzel Boston. Among this rookie class, I think we had a lot of hope that he was going to go in round 1. That didn't occur. But they took a first-round receiver in Casey Concepcion, who I think is a better prospect. this team often has to deal with bad weather late in the season, which can also impact pass catchers at the worst possible time in the fantasy calendar. It all boils down to me not being nearly as excited about him as a prospect in Dynasty or redraft.
Edwards on second down, deep shot, end zone, jump ball caught. What a catch for 6. Edwards drops a dime, and Tulsa with Spencer Tears answers right back. 4th down for Orlando. They're taking an end zone shot, and they've got another touchdown. Paxton DeLorette is dealing on a Sunday.
When kings go, kings come. A king went, and we have a little prince here who we're going to turn in to a king. That's new team president for the Mavericks, Masai Ujiri, who you may remember from the Raptors, among other places, talking about the new future for the Mavericks and trying to move on from Luka and Caroline. I think this was an important moment. I think it was important for Masai to come out and just address the elephant in the room. Hey, I know you're pissed about Luka. I understand you're pissed about Luka. We're going to try and move on with Cooper. I think he had to do this, but what did you make of the way that he phrased all of this?
I thought it was a masterclass in the way that you address a fan base when you are new to an organization. Because Masai Ujiri checked a couple of boxes that I think were necessary in checking. 1, he acknowledged what Luka Doncic meant to this organization and who Luka Doncic is. A king. He is a king in the NBA. He was a king in Dallas. You can't just undermine who Luka is, because then the fan base is going to be like, who is this guy defending the Luka Doncic trade? But what he did was he acknowledged who Luka is without, causing a riot in the streets and saying, oh, what could we possibly do without Luka Doncic? No, look, we had a king. Sometimes kings come and kings go, and he's gone. So he acknowledged what Luka means. He acknowledged that it's not the end of the world. He acknowledged the potential of Cooper Flagg and what they have in him. He didn't call Cooper Flagg a king because he's not one yet. He's still developing. He's still coming along. He only has 1 year of NBA play under his belt. Cooper Flagg has just scratched the surface of what we all think that he can achieve in this league and what Dallas Mavericks fans want to believe that he can be in this league. So I thought Masai Ujiri checked all of these boxes. 1, acknowledged who Luka Doncic is. We all know how dumb of a trade it was. Masai Ujiri knows that better than anybody. So he's not, trying to just swipe it under the rug. Acknowledges who Luka is, acknowledges that they're going to be just fine without him, and acknowledges what they now have and that he has yet to unlock his full potential. So I thought it was a very smart statement from Masai Ujiri.
I also think the opening statement has to be aware of the tone that fans need, because ultimately the reason you're sitting at the podium when you're announcing somebody is to give the fans some insight into what direction is going to be, what the tone is going to be, all of these different things. Like, you're not sitting at the podium because you're answering questions for other players or teams in the league. You're sitting at the podium because you're answering questions from the press, which is really a way to speak to your fans. Acknowledging, and we live in a forgiving society. All the Mavs have ever needed to do, in my mind, is step up and say, hey guys, we screwed this whole thing up. We're going to rebuild it, but boy, did we make a mistake. And as much as they've danced around that, to me, having Masai come out and say, hey, a king is gone, acknowledging the greatness of Luka, and then acknowledging, hey, we got somebody here we think we can grow around. I think that can give everybody a little bit more closure. Like, nothing's going to change the fact that Mavs fans for generations will remember where they were the day they found out Luka Doncic was traded. But how do you start to move forward in your fandom? How do you start to move forward in the conversations? How do you move the entire sort of tone and way you're perceived forward? You do it by acknowledging and then sort of praising. I think that's why this is perfect and why Masai was a really good choice here, because he's somebody that has a lot of experience around the NBA. Now, that being said, it's not without sort of its internal ruffles, because reports have come out that Jason Kidd, the coach of the team, also wanted to become the president of the team. So knowing that he made the grab to try and get the bigger position, Caroline, but that, he wasn't accepted for that position, and frankly didn't even know about that until the very end. Like, if at some point, it says here on this report, he's known for months he wasn't getting the job. I've seen conflicting reports on that. Either way, the minute he finds out that Masai Ujiri is his boss, how does he compartmentalize all this? Because he's certainly got to accept He's now working for someone else, not running things.
Well, first of all, it's kind of what you have to do when you're a professional, right? You wanted this job, you didn't get it. So now you have two options: to move forward with grace and say, look, I didn't get this job, but I am the head coach of this team, so I can continue to do my job that I was given, that I have earned, and I can coach this team. Or I can be a crybaby about it and not get over it and feel like I don't want to be here anymore, and feel like if I can be a president, if I can be in the front office of an organization, it's not going to happen here, so maybe it'll happen somewhere else. I think Jason Kidd has to come up with that conclusion. Masai Ujiri also needs to come up with that conclusion. Can he and Jason Kidd coexist in their respective jobs? If yes, then great. Because I think that's what's best for Cooper Flagg. What do we always talk about, whether it's young quarterbacks in the NFL, young players in general? Consistency is key. I always believe that bad organizations, dysfunctional organizations, fail young players far more than the opposite. So if Jason Kidd knows how Cooper Flagg ticks, knows how to unlock Cooper Flagg, the best thing for Cooper Flagg is consistency. Having two head coaches in 2 years is not a great start for a young guy that you view as the future of your organization. So I think that's what's best. If everybody can just put their egos beside them for a second, that's what's best for your young player and therefore your organization. But if Jason Kidd and Masai Ujiri feel like there is too much friction between the two of them to move forward, then you have to make that decision that if the friction is going to supersede anything else, then you have to do what's best for your organization and eliminate the source of the friction, and that would be Jason Kidd. But I think the best thing for him, that man right there, and the best thing for that organization is for everybody to just put their egos to the side and do your jobs as they were given.
I agree. I also think there's an element, though, for Masai, as this is your opportunity to come in and use your basketball mind. So you need to look at Cooper Flagg and ask yourself one question. Is Jason Kidd the person that can unlock greatness in Cooper Flagg? And if the answer to that is yes, then you absolutely need to do everything you can to try and make Jason Kidd feel like he's still loved in this relationship within this organization, even if he's not the team president. You need to make sure you're doing everything you can to empower him. Certainly, stability has been part of the Mavericks' future, or past, I should say. Rick Carlisle was the coach from 2008 to 2021. Don Nelson was the coach from 98 to 2005. Like, they've had long runs for coaches along the way. So stability is something that this organization, I think, is used to. But you do need to look at it and make sure, okay, this is what Jason Kidd does well. This is what Flagg does well. Do they align? And if you believe they align, then everything you need to do is keep them in the building. If you don't believe they align, then you need to get them out of the building right away. Because the minute he said we have a prince, but he implied they're going to grow that prince into a king, what he's really telling you is what we all know. The future of everybody in Dallas will be absolutely connected directly to the development of Cooper Flagg. If he becomes a superstar and they become a team next year or the year after that's in the middle of the pack on the West, then they're doing exactly what they need to grow around that young superstar. Remember, we talked so much about his age with the Rookie of the Year stuff. There's still going to be this pressing, are you getting the most out of Cooper Flagg? So if Masai's basketball brain says Jason Kidd can get the most out of Cooper Flagg, then you do whatever you need to make sure that he's happy and everybody moves forward. If any part of his basketball mind says he isn't the right guy, then you need to move on right away and put yourself in a situation where you can bring in somebody that absolutely can. Plenty more to come on this, of course, but the Mavs are already eliminated. With the Mavs out of the NBA playoffs, they're not the only ones. So are the Celtics. But the question is huge change coming in Boston? We'll figure it out.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side, how do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses midfield, down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically. Correct. You know, when you look at, like, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Jaylen Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because he'll get crushed.
Jaylen Brown is, quote, deeply frustrated with the Celtics organization. That per Tracy McGrady, I think his frustration lies deeply in the organization that we don't have the details to. There's just been a lot of stuff that I've been hearing. So obviously, somebody that is connected to so many NBA voices and players and people is giving us some insight into frustration here. And that comes after Jaylen Brown took to Twitch after the 3-1 lead was lost to Philly and declared that this year, when he was his first option and an MVP candidate, was his, quote, favorite year in his career over the year he won the NBA Finals. It really walks me through this. Like, are we feeling some kind of way about Jaylen Brown? Does it feel like Jaylen Brown is a selfish player?
I can't use the word selfish because I think selfish is a harsh word. And I think if you're selfish, then you're a bad person. And I don't think that Jaylen Brown is a bad person. But I do think it's telling that the Celtics won a championship. Jaylen Brown was Finals MVP. But the most fun that you've ever had in your career was the year that you played without Jason Tatum, was the year where you were getting all of the love and all of the praise and all of the regular season MVP, league MVP love. Like, that was the most fun that you had in your career, not winning a Larry O'Brien. The most fun in your career that you've ever had was the year that you got bounced in the first round of the playoffs when you had finals expectations. I think that's telling to me. So while I can't say that Jaylen Brown is selfish, because selfish players get in the way of their team. Selfish players, I think, are that's too harsh of a word. Because I think Jaylen Brown's a good guy. But I do think right now, at this point in his career, Jaylen Brown is ready to get the love that a number one gets. Jaylen Brown wants the recognition that the certified superstar of an organization gets. That Jaylen Brown might right now in his career put personal accolades over the achievements of his team. If you think that makes him selfish, that's how you interpret it. I can't go there, but I do think right now Jaylen Brown just wants more personal hype.
So I do not think Jaylen Brown is selfish at all in this process. And frankly, everything he says kind of makes sense to me. I don't know anything about being an NBA player. I'm a 5'9", unathletic dude. I'm the first to admit that. So the only thing that I can relate this to in my life is to my past in music. The times that I had the most fun were not the times when the band I was in was putting out #1 singles. That created pressure. The minute you had pressure, I still enjoyed it, but my God, the pressure you feel every single night when all of a sudden it's like, well, we filled 30,000. Can we fill 40,000 in this room the next time? How's the single doing? What are we doing with it next? And frankly, in some of those gigs, I didn't have as many solos, and it wasn't as much fun because we were executing something for a goal, and success was selling a lot of records, and success was selling a lot of tickets, and I was really proud of that success. But if you ask me when I had the most fun in my entire music career, it's when I was in bands nobody ever heard of, and I got to rip 42 solos a night and just go out there and play with absolutely no worries. This is a Celtics team this year that had no expectations. Plenty of people, this show included, we will throw ourselves under the bus, walked into this season saying, hey, why not just tank? Why not just tank and wait till Tatum comes back? So in a year where you had absolutely no expectations, in a year where there was no pressure whatsoever, and in a year where you got the ball a bunch more and you just got to do wild and crazy fun stuff along the way without having to worry about the offense and having about worrying and sharing the ball, like, that's allowed to be fun. Does that mean that you'd rather do that than win championships? No. But certainly we've seen in sports how many players, after the Patriots were at the end of their first big run, we heard former Patriots players say, I'd rather not win it all and just go somewhere where it's fun to play. We've heard this from athletes before. When championships are the expectation, you can enjoy winning a championship. But when championships are the expectation, in Boston, it comes with a whole heaping, helping spoonful of wild pressure. You can't walk down the street without somebody in Boston letting you know how you performed the night before. That's part of the joy and pain that comes from playing in certain cities. So to me, Jaylen Brown saying he had the most fun this year, well, there were no expectations. And for him, he got to hold the ball as much as he wants and do whatever he wants. Now, if you go to him, it's a total separate conversation to go to him and say, okay, next year, would you rather have that fun or would you rather be in the championship window again? We don't know the answer to that. But if the answer is championship, I wouldn't fault him. If the answer is more fun, I wouldn't fault him. I just think Jaylen Brown is being honest about the process, the grind of playing when the championship or bust mentality, the grind of playing when people are sitting on sports talk radio every day saying, got to trade one of them because this duo's never going to win a championship. Like, what about that was supposed to be fun? It wasn't necessarily the thrill of winning is a relief and it fills a hole in your heart. But does that mean the whole season was fun? I don't think it has to. And I don't think that has to make Jaylen Brown selfish. I don't think that has to mean Jaylen Brown feels some kind of way. I just think it's okay to acknowledge athletes get different kinds of joy in different situations. So to me, this is still the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum that just won a championship a few years ago. And it's okay if Jaylen Brown went out and had fun this year, Caroline.
I'll push back on that. We said that the Celtics should tank in August. Things changed. Things changed for the Celtics team. They did have championship expectations. We did get up here and talk in February and early March about how the Celtics had an easy path paved to the NBA Finals. We talked about how there was a championship tier. It was OKC, it was San Antonio, and it was Boston. They did have championship expectations. Yes, we did talk about how they should tank without Jason Tatum, how we thought the Celtics were going to be terrible this year, but that changed. It's the same thing that I'll go back to when the Celtics got bounced. I said, I don't want to hear about how nobody thought the Celtics team would do anything this year because we talked about that in August and September and October. But the tune was very different when it mattered the most because Jaylen Brown changed that conversation. So I do hear you that sometimes it can be more fun and more freeing to play without all of the pressure on your shoulders, without all of the eyeballs in the world on you. Sometimes it's fun to just play free. Sometimes it's fun to just play with low expectations. But that is not this Celtics team. This Celtics team's expectations changed drastically and dramatically. And Jaylen Brown knows the impact of his words, knows that when he says things, whether it's in front of a microphone at a press conference or it's on a Twitch stream, he knows whatever he says is going to be aggregated. He's a smart man. He's a smart person. He knows, especially in Boston. If you just whisper into someone's ear at lunch one day, it's going to get aggregated on sports talk radio shows and it's going to be the headline on the Boston Globe sports section. Jaylen Brown knows that. So I think he's calculated in what he says. He knows that what he says is going to get picked apart and prodded. So I don't think that he just goes out there and willy-nilly says things and things are going to get misinterpreted. I think he knew what his words meant, and I think he chose them in a calculated way.
It's funny because we see all of this the same, and then we come to a much different result because with everything you just said, part of the reason that it might not have been fun by the end of the year, the most fun he's ever had, is because it started off great, and then all of a sudden the expectations come. And now you're like, man, here we go again. All of a sudden, we lose the series and the sky's falling. I've been through this so much in my career. And when he speaks in front of a microphone, I think you're right. I do think he knows that his words have power. But I also think it's pretty human to sit here and say, man, I just delivered a championship and here we go again. Like everybody's yelling about it wasn't enough. I'm just going to talk because no matter what I do, it isn't good enough anyway. So I'm just going to speak emotionally from where I am and y'all can deal with it. I think there's more. We always talk about in college sports, coaches are talking to their players. I think in NBA modern culture, NBA players have realized that no matter what they say, it gets twisted by whether it's former NBA players or whether it's the media or whether it's the fans. Whatever they say gets read and reread and ripped apart and reformed 100 ways. I think what we're seeing right now is a generation of NBA players that frankly don't give a you-know-what with any of what we think of what they say anymore. And they're so fed up with trying to say the right things that they're just speaking from the heart. So you have a player that just had a ton of fun playing, and then it got heavy. Then the expectations got real. Then they get eliminated. Now it's like, man, I had more fun when I was just hanging out because the expectations weren't this. Like, I can do we're seeing the same exact thing.
But
I can
that's
do
not
all
what he
the
said,
same
though.
math and come to a very, well, no. He
Didn't say this was his favorite year until the expectations changed. He said this was his favorite year playing.
Fair. I think that the playoff loss is a reminder of why other years weren't as much fun. Like, you just lost, and all of a sudden WEEI is blowing up. Trade everybody. You just lost, and all of a sudden it's, should you be traded to the Bucks? That's so exhausting that I think two things can be true. I think he can be telling the truth. This is the most fun I've ever had this year. But the way it ends is just like, man, do I really want to deal with this you-know-what all over again? Like, I think that can still be true.
But I also think he's part of the source of it, right? We know that Tracy McGrady and Jaylen Brown have a very close relationship. And Tracy McGrady is the one that's going out there and saying that he's frustrated with the organization. You think Tracy McGrady is just making that up? You think Tracy McGrady, who has a close relationship with Jaylen Brown, is going out there and putting that out there without his blessing? No! He's putting that out there because Jaylen Brown wants it out there. So I do hear you that I do think that some players probably get exhausted. We probably get exhausted with the over-analysis of tweets and words and gestures and did he mean this? Did he mean this? Like, it does at a point get exhausting. But I don't think that that's where Jaylen Brown is coming at it from. I think Jaylen Brown is part of the source of all of this. Because when it comes from, let's just say random basketball commentator here. That might be one thing, but when it comes from his mentor, Tracy McGrady, that's different. I think the source matters. So I do hear you on that sometimes it can get exhausting, but I think Jaylen Brown is part of the reason why we're hearing all of these things. He wants it out there.
That's fair. That's fair. And part of what we now get are rumors of Jaylen Brown, Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. And let me just address this one right head on, Caroline. If the Boston Celtics trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis Antetokounmpo, that would be, to me, one of the stupidest trades I can possibly remember. Just when you talk about, I'm not saying worst trades, I'm saying stupid. Because at the end of the day, what you're keeping is your superstar that has had plenty of health issues over the entirety of his career. Still a superstar. I love him. I think he's amazing. But you're keeping the guy with health issues, and you're trading for a guy with ... health issues, because that's going to win you a championship, and you're getting rid of the one healthy player that you've had that truly can be built around. If you told me they were trading Tatum for Giannis, at least I'd say, okay, that's injury for injury. But my God, if the Celtics call the Bucks today and say, hey, Jaylen for Giannis, yeah, I'm running. Yes, sure, I'll throw in some free pizza. Whatever you want. Yes, I will do that all day. If the Celtics do that trade, they are just too stupid to fix to me.
See, I think it's different. I mean, like, Jason Tatum tore his Achilles. That happens. It's like guys tear their ACLs, guys, tear Achilles. Those are just kind of basketball injuries. I don't know if I can look at Giannis is injury prone. Let's be honest. Like, his body is clearly, I don't want to say breaking down because that's awfully dramatic, but clearly there's something that is about the game that is not agreeing with his body. I think that's different from Jason Tatum. Like, are we going to say Tyrese Halliburton is injury prone? No, he just tore his Achilles. Like, those kind of things happen. Unfortunately, modern medicine is a heck of a drug. I think the Jason Tatum injury that happened at the end of this past season in Game 6 against the Sixers was because they brought Jason Tatum back too early. Like, we talked about this on the show. Like, are you sure? He's 7, 8, 9 months removed from an Achilles tear and you're going to bring him back? Like, are you sure? He was clearly favoring that other ankle, and I think that kind of reared its ugly head. I can't quite say yet that Jason Tatum is injury prone, but it at least is a question mark moving forward, and I think you bring up a very fair point. I don't even know, like, does Giannis fit the system in Boston? Like, it's very clear what Joe Mazzulla wants to do. Like, does Giannis fit into that ecosystem? So I think that just in terms of, like, names and on paper, Jaylen Brown for Giannis, like that pops off the page. That's like a first take get up. Like, that is a sports talk radio show's dream. I just don't know if in reality and actuality that actually makes sense. But if Milwaukee is looking for their next alpha, their next Batman, their next go-to guy, Fitzy, I think Jaylen Brown can be that. I think Jaylen Brown is a Batman that's kind of playing this role as a 1B or a number 2 because he's on a team with another Batman. But I think Jaylen Brown can be the focal piece, the centerpiece of a team out there. We've seen it this year, and he was an MVP caliber player.
No, 100%. Jaylen Brown, absolutely. I think Jaylen Brown's a star. I can't say that loud enough. I think Jaylen Brown is a star. Yeah. And, can one star win you a championship? I don't know. But can he be a building block that they build around in Milwaukee or anywhere else? Yes. Like, your point is a really valid one on Mazzulla, who, by the way, is as stubborn as the day is long. And we know that his offense is let's heave up 4,732 threes. And when you tell me it doesn't work, I'll remind you that I have a championship trophy. So now you can never tell me that my approach doesn't work. And I'm never going to alter it. Celtics fans, you know this. It's why you're yelling about Mazzulla. So I don't really know how Giannis fits into that. You are 1,000% right. But clearly, I mean, and by the way, I think Brown for Antetokounmpo would be the type of return that Milwaukee should never expect to get. I agree with you. I think that at the core, Jaylen Brown is I think he's a superstar in this league. He's not just a star. He is a superstar in this league. Whoever would get him from Boston would be incredibly lucky to get him. There is no doubt about that. I just think that would be an absolutely asinine trade for the Celtics to get a 31-year-old Giannis whose body seems to be breaking down as a solution for a Tatum coming off of an Achilles injury. Fair point that I can't call an Achilles injury prone. That is a fair pushback. I'll take that back. You are very right about that. But I still don't feel like about it.
But it's a concern moving forward.
Feel good about it. Yeah, it is a concern moving forward. All right, plenty more
Giannis
to come on this.
Giannis has hit 28% from 3 in his entire career.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mazzulla will fix him. It's like Mazzulla will fix it. I just love the idea of Giannis going to the Celtics and then never being in the paint ever again. He just shoots 3. It's fine. It works. Plenty more to break down on the Celtics because they are the Celtics, and that's what we do. But coming up next, we've got college football expansion around the corner. It looks like it's finally done. What's the best and worst of what we're about to see? We'll tell you.
Kick is on the way. And Dante Wright will bring it out of the end zone. Right across the 5, the 10, the 15. Right across the 20. Into New Mexico territory. 15, 10, 5. Does he get in?
He did.
Touchdown, Pirates.
Dante Wright goes back. He played like a center fielder at Yankee Stadium and then takes it the length of the building. The young man was electric on that kick return.
Do you not enjoy this?
No.
Would you rather not do it?
That's not in the cards.
Why not?
It's not an option. I've worked so hard for so long. I've built myself up to a position and I've dug myself into a hole.
But I feel like you've reached a point in your life where, correct me if I'm wrong, you could do other things.
What am I gonna do? There's nothing like a fight night check. That's the beauty of fighting.
Let's get to your next winner here, Boone. And this time we're not talking about rookie. We're talking about a veteran fallout. Who's a winner to you from the NFL draft?
I think Rashee Rice has to be mentioned, right? Now he doesn't have any additional new competition that we have to worry about, especially a guy like Tate could have shown up there and been that true outside receiver for them. But we're looking at his fantasy outlook right now. And fantasy-wise, this year and beyond, it still looks pretty good. He survived the draft.
Edwards has got it. Throw, tip, intercepted. Destin Mack, the INT. And he makes the biggest play of the game defensively for Orlando.
Great coverage on the back end by the Orlando Pirates. 4th down and 4. Destin Mack in coverage. Big time hit by Kyrie Coleman leads to the interception.
Breaking news, Aaron Rodgers, who is expected to visit the Steelers on Friday and this weekend, will likely play for them in 2026 per Ian Rappaport. Deal not yet done, but Rodgers planning to play for Pittsburgh this upcoming season. Caroline, we're getting one step closer to resolution to a story that is exhausting to all of us, but certainly the best way for it to end is for him to actually show up, report, so we can stop talking about it.
Are we one step closer? Like, this is one of those things I have to see it before I believe it. You know, the fact that Aaron Rodgers' documentary was called Enigma was a perfect name because Aaron Rodgers is an enigma. He, more than any other player in the National Football League, I think that we have ever seen, is so unpredictable, so wildly out there that until pen hits the paper, I can't believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. You can tell me all day long, and I believe Ian Rappaport's reporting. I'm not saying that it's bad reporting, but until Aaron Rodgers has put the pen to the paper, whether it's being in the facility, whether it's going on sports talk radio shows and talking about his future, whether it's talking about his relationship with Mike McCarthy publicly, like whatever it might be, I will not believe Aaron Rodgers' future is in Pittsburgh until I actually see it. I think that's what's going to happen. If I had to bet on it, I would bet on Aaron Rodgers being a Pittsburgh Steeler. But with Aaron Rodgers, expect the unexpected. That's the only thing that I know about this man.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because we'll continue to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers today is not Aaron Rodgers, the name that we associate with Aaron Rodgers. So let me replace all of this and say Steelers on the verge of re-signing 42-year-old aging mid-level quarterback. Huzzah. That's kind of what they're up against. And I understand they don't have a better option. I understand it feels like I'm trolling Aaron Rodgers. I'm not. I have tremendous respect for what has been absolutely one of the great careers of his generation. All of these things can be true. But a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers is not going to win the Pittsburgh Steelers a Super Bowl. You can book that right now. I'm very comfortable taking that bet with anybody that would like to place it. So I'm not sure exactly what we're obsessing about. We'll keep you updated, though, as we get more news from Aaron Rodgers because inevitably, we'll get more news from Aaron Rodgers. We got more news from college football yesterday.
Always.
Expansion, inevitable. We know it. Now we've got the more details coming in. We're looking at this point. The coaches have spoken this to Ross Dellinger. In a vote last week, the AFCA, that's the American Football Coaches Association board, swung its support behind a playoff with the max participants, likely 24, discontinuing conference championship and ending CFP by second week of January. So to sum that all up, there'll no longer be an SEC or Big Ten championship game. The coaches have put their support behind 24 teams, and they still want it to end by mid-January. What do you think, Caroline?
So, I mean, the coaches want this? Crazy. Shocker. Coaches that have built-in bonuses for making the college football playoff and know that their jobs can be saved if they make the postseason want an expanded postseason. Breaking news. That doesn't surprise me at all. Now, I don't like the result, but I like the process, and I'll explain why. I don't like the result because I don't think that there are any given year 24 teams that are championship caliber teams, and I think that's what a playoff should be. I don't think that there are 24 deserving teams on any given year because I watched JMU get blown out in the college football playoff. I watched Tulane get blown out in the college football playoff. I don't need to see more of those. That wasn't a 12-team playoff. You want to double it? I don't really need to see that. Am I going to watch it? Of course I'm going to watch it. But does it make it a better product? Are we serving a need and a desire for the college football public? Is this what fans want? I don't think so. So I don't like the result. This is really only out of greed. This is only because more playoff games means more revenue, means more money, more eyeballs, more money lining the pockets of the powers that be. It's great. And it's just because of money. And that's fine, but I don't like it. I do like the process, though. Conference championship games have really kind of been rendered insignificant over the years because winning a conference championship game, I don't think saves the job of a college football coach. Winning a conference championship game, I don't think bears the same amount of weight that it used to because we used to live in a world of college football where there were two teams that went to the national championship game and only those two teams were able to say that they reached the pinnacle of the college football world. But if you got to your conference championship game, well, then you got a ring, then you had something actually substantial that you could take away from a season. It doesn't bear the same kind of weight anymore. Like, that's great and all that you got to the conference championship game, but like, what did you do in the college football playoff? So I don't mind doing away with conference championship games. I'm sad about it because I love the tradition of it because I always love to go to conference championship games, but like, I'm not going to lose sleep at night. So I like the fact that they're doing away with the conference championship games in order to accommodate for the schedule. I didn't want to live in a world where the college football playoff was going up against the Super Bowl. You go up against the NFL in the Super Bowl, you're going to lose. So it's not smart to continue to extend the season. I also didn't think it was sustainable or smart that, let's say, Indiana last year played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game on December 6th and then didn't play again until January 1st. That's dumb. Like, that makes no sense. To have 3 to 4 weeks off is just, it's silly. It's not serving anyone. So I like the way they're approaching this in terms of the calendar reconstruction. I just don't think that we need 24 teams in the college football playoff. Who is like campaigning for these players? And a 24-team playoff, that's how many games? 4, 5, 6 extra games at the end of the season? You know, in the NFL, when you add a 17th or inevitably 18th game onto the schedule, you have a players association that's actively fighting for the good of the players. Who's doing that in college football?
Nobody's fighting for the good of the players in college football. Until they collectively bargain and unionize, nobody will fight for the good of college football players in college football. Like, the players are just pawns. They just exist, which is why I have no problem with players wanting to get every dime that they possibly can. And I have no problem with players standing up and transferring all the time and getting every ounce of money that they can stack their bank accounts with, because literally nobody in college football has the responsibility of protecting the players. So if nobody has the responsibility of protecting them, let them protect themselves. That being said, I hear you on the 24 team, we don't need 24 teams. There aren't 24 teams that can win it, but I think that that's truly the case in every sport. We just watched OKC in a bloodbath of a first round. The play-in tournament in and of itself was expansion we didn't need in the NBA, but they want to make more money. There's constantly NHL teams that make the Stanley Cup playoff that you look around and say, really? Like, last year, we watched the Steelers and the Texans play a game nobody really wanted, but it was a playoff game, so we watched it. Every major sport, maybe except for baseball, has somebody that doesn't deserve to get in that gets in. But fact is, we still watch it. So I think this is as flawless as you can get when you start talking about expansion. 24 teams is too many. Yes, there'll be games that are absolutely awful, but they'll be talked about because they're playoff games. The minute you put the word playoff in front of something, everybody cares more about it. So I can't make somebody care about Tulane in the regular season, but they'll care about Tulane enough to bet on it in the middle of December if it's playoff games. So I like the 24 games. I like the calendar rewrite. I like the fact that there's more action. I think the number one thing that college football needed to address and needs to address in expansion is maintaining momentum. To me, the minute you get the tournament brackets in March Madness, we all know this. Sunday night, there's a bracketology show. We both hosted them for Yahoo this year. And the biggest pain in the ass of the bracketology show is you got to do it right then, because the next day everybody's filling out their brackets because the actual tournament starts a couple of days after that. I want that level of momentum from college football. I want the brackets released on a Sunday, and I want that Saturday there to be playoff games. I want them to be at home sites. I want to capture momentum. I want eyeballs. I want people to say, hey, I haven't watched this team all year, but I'll watch them now because it's a playoff team. Maybe I'll fall in love with Diego Pavia through the playoff process. So to me, I understand in my mind why all of this works for the sales pitch, for the growth of the sport, for eyeballs, for the calendar. And I understand why coaches want it, because it's much harder to fire a coach that just made the playoffs. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't surprise me coaches want an expanded playoff field, because winning or losing the SEC championship game wouldn't necessarily always be a reason to keep you. Making the playoffs for many coaches will be. It's hard to turn around and say, oh, well, we've made the playoffs 4 years in a row, but we're still firing our head coach. Much like the NFL, yes, sometimes you have places like Buffalo that will eventually do that. But I think coaches look at this and say more playoff teams means a better opportunity for bonuses and a better opportunity for stability. And then the league looks around and says it means better opportunity for new TV packages, more money, and more eyeballs, which makes everybody more money. And yeah, players, I think eventually we're going to see players have incentives within their contracts that are going to give them playoff incentives. Hey, I won the national championship. I get an extra $1 million. The only problem I have with it is, you're right, long-term player health and safety becomes a concern. A lot of wear and tear on the players' bodies, but the players don't have any way to fight for each other and with each other and for themselves until we collectively bargain and unionize. And that's going to take a damn decade, Caroline. So in the meantime, might as well make every dime they can, which means everybody's got to make more money.
Everybody's going to make more money, and that's what it continues to go back to. I care about player health and safety. I think you care about player health and safety. I'm sure coaches care about player health and safety. But at the end of the day, if it's like, hey, we get an extra $100 million or your quarterback is maybe, taken care of a little bit more, you're going to take the extra money 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. That is just the greed that exists just in general in business and in life, and the greed that has only developed over time in college sports. The sooner that we all acknowledge that, the sooner I think we can all kind of just be realistic with ourselves in the current state of college sports.
We all say we care about player health and safety, but then whenever our favorite team has somebody injured, we say, just shoot it up and get back in the game. It's amazing how transparent it becomes when it's your own team. All right. Speaking of your teams, nobody knows New York teams better than Peter Rosenberg. He's going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on all things Manhattan.
This is rich to me, but again, this is this draft class. Once you get outside the top 10, it's like whatever. But I do think this is a little rich to me. But Les Snead loves his Bama guys. I know he went to Auburn, but he has a thing for anyone that's played in the SEC in the South. He really does. You should have seen his write-up on Julio Jones. It was like fan fiction. This to me is just like, all right, I get your argument. At 13, like that is, you're pushing it. You have one of the best rosters in the NFL right now.
Right.
This could be a difference maker at some position.
Now, I said to a reporter today, tell me the top 5 stars in the UFC right now. Islam.
Yep, agree.
Tom Aspinall.
Okay.
Pereira.
Yep. Ilya Taporia.
Yes, he said him.
Khamzat Chimaev.
Yes, and him. I think that was the 5.
Okay.
And I was like, I just feel like right now, I look at Tom Aspinall and think, you are one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Give us your final loser here, Boone.
Denzel Boston. Among this rookie class, I think we had a lot of hope that he was going to go in round 1. That didn't occur. But they took a first-round receiver in Casey Concepcion, who I think is a better prospect. This team often has to deal with bad weather late in the season, which can also impact pass catchers at the worst possible time in the fantasy calendar. It all boils down to me not being nearly as excited about him as a prospect in Dynasty or redraft.
Edwards on second down, deep shot, end zone, jump ball caught. What a catch for 6. Edwards drops a dime, and Tulsa with Spencer Tears answers right back. 4th down for Orlando. They're taking an end zone shot, and they've got another touchdown. Paxton DeLorette is dealing on a Sunday.
Mike Brown says he has no update on OG Anunoby, who left the game with 2:31 remaining in the 4th quarter due to an apparent leg injury. Anunoby has been the most valuable Knick of this postseason to date. That from Ian Begley. We'll see if Peter Rosenberg agrees with that and try and get the latest on his level of hope. Here with more on the Knicks and all things New York sports, really. Rosenberg hosts the Sirius XM and the Cheap Heat podcast, I'm going to learn to talk, which covers all things wrestling. Love it. Peter, been doing great work on Get Up this week also, by the way. How much does the OG injury worry you?
Well, let me see. First of all, thanks for having me. It is worrisome. He has, not only has OG been great in this playoff, but if you really look back at since OG Anunoby came to the Knicks from Toronto, he has kind of always quietly been the X factor. Yes, Jalen Brunson's the leader of this team, the biggest star of this team, and obviously a stud. But when you think about it, this team is successful when OG Anunoby is available, and this team excels when OG Anunoby is great. So, I have to say, there is no world in which this team goes on a run like to the finals without OG Anunoby. I don't think that's possible. So it's a big, big thing to watch here over the next 24 to 48 hours.
We heard Mike Brown point out, again, the foul disparity in this game. Now, it wasn't as blatant last night as it was, I think, in game 1. But do you think the Knicks are getting an unfair whistle, or is there maybe something else going on here?
Listen, it certainly felt that way. Like in the first half, particularly yesterday, it just felt like at every possible moment when momentum might starting to be swing the way of the Knicks, you'd hear that whistle, sometimes a delayed whistle, and it was incredibly frustrating to watch. And that is sort of the way of this Sixers team. I guess it was interesting to see it be the case even without Joel Embiid in the game. He is sort of the one you expect to see flailing and picking up those fouls in every situation. And so with him out to still see the fouls, you could certainly see the look of frustration on the faces of many of the Knicks. But in the end, that was a really gritty and gutsy performance from this Knicks team. I did not like how they adjusted to the new look Sixers. Of course, in game one, they had seen the Embiid version of this team, and it's a markedly different team without Joel Embiid. So I didn't love the way the Knicks adjusted. They fell sort of into the trap of a little bit in the first half, I thought in particular, what I call Brunson ball, where they just sort of sit back and end up watching Jalen Brunson too much. That is not when this team is at their best. This team is at its best when the offense, and this has been said ad nauseum at this point, when the offense is flowing through Cat and OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson is going to always get his looks no matter what, but they don't want to end up in a pattern of just sitting there watching Jalen Brunson chuck. And I thought that happened a bit in the first half. In the second half, though, they found the rhythm, found their game, and obviously they ended up gutting out a really, really important win.
So Dolan has been clear with everybody all year that it's make the finals or bust. Is this an NBA Finals team to you?
Fully healthy at this point, it is. Yeah, I mean, we were having a conversation yesterday. Don't these playoffs, guys, make you feel like, what are we even doing in the regular season? Like, what are we watching? Why are we bothering talking about this week to week? Because, I'm a Celtics fan who covers the Knicks here, being in New York. The Celtics were one thing in the regular season, something completely different when they get to the playoffs, obviously, right? Like, Missoula's style seemed to be good for 82 games. You get to the playoffs, it's garbage. The 76ers have to get into the play-in game. Now they seem like a competitive basketball team. And this Knicks team, they had their ups and downs, particularly after the NBA Cup. They really, they followed the pattern of the winner of the Cup immediately goes into a slump. And they had a rough 10-game span after that. They were really a good team throughout. But the truth is, guys, what they've been over the last 5 games is a different team than they were in the regular season. And this version that they've been, because if you were to ask me in early March, or even early April, how I felt about this team, I'd say I think they have some juice and can compete, but I frankly think that by May 7th, we would have been talking about, will Giannis be a Knick next year? And now, this is a team that you have every reason to believe should go to the finals. I mean, obviously, Detroit had their number during the regular season, but as I just said, who gives a damn about the regular season? At this moment in time, the Detroit team that barely made it out of the first round, yeah, I like this Knicks team to go all the way to the finals.
All right, you brought it up because I feel like it's like death taxes Giannis talk no matter what day of the year it is on the calendar. There's so much Giannis to the Knicks speculation. Giannis even said, if I go anywhere, I want to be a New York Knick. If the Knicks do get to the NBA Finals, does that quiet the Giannis speculation? Or is it just like, okay, great, we got to the finals, and then the next day we're right back into the Giannis to Knicks speculation?
I truly believe, and I may be an ignoramus, guys, I think if they go to the finals, that they keep this team together. It's hard for me to believe. This is a team that has not been in that spot in 27 years. You're telling me that with this group, they make the move and get all the way to the finals, and as good as it is to get to the conference finals, we all know that in all sports, whether it's making the Super Bowl or making the conference finals or winning the pennant, there's something different about representing your conference. To me, to blow up a team that 2 years ago at that point would have made the conference final, and then a year later took the next step and made the final, to me, to blow that up and get rid of basically, potentially, guys, every big piece on this team not named Jalen Brunson, to bring in Giannis, who, let's be honest, I mean, he's incredible. He is a team-changing player. He's also kind of become an annoying malcontent. Like, is that really what you want to do here? Like, I think this city would be, and also, for them to get to the finals, guys, that would mean that Karl Anthony Towns has an incredible playoff run all the way through. So then you'd be turning around and probably moving on from Cat, who at that point would have finally fully won over the New York fan base. I don't think you blow it up if you go to the finals. I don't.
You'd also have gotten through the Celtics and the 76ers in the process, which is like you're killing your rivals again. I don't know. It just feels like there's a magic to that entire conversation. Let's stick in New York, Peter, and talk about some of the other sports that happened in the city that you cover so much, which includes the New York Football Giants. Harbaugh comes in, makes a bunch of changes to the Giants. As somebody that covers this team and the city so much, what's the ceiling for the Giants in your mind?
I mean, listen, this really depends who you ask. And if you ask an optimistic Giant fan, I think they believe that this team will compete this year. And by that, I think we're talking, 500-ish football, an 8-9 sort of season, a 9-8 sort of season. I think that is the sort of ceiling that people have. I mean, I guess if you're a crazy person, you could go above that. To me, I think it's a little bit lofty still. And guys, full disclosure, because everyone in my radio audience knows this, I am a huge, loud and proud Washington Commanders fan. I could give two damns about the New York Giants. I hope they lose every game next year. But I do try to cover them honestly and fairly. And, we saw some promising things from this team. There are pieces on both sides of the ball. Obviously, one of those pieces they just moved on from in Dexter Lawrence. Now, I believe, in spite of the fact that it led to a phenomenal draft pick, I believe that's a bigger problem than Giants fans are giving it credit for. I think everyone's so busy being like, oh man, Joe Shane got a great haul back for Dexter Lawrence. Instead of thinking, around the league, people consider Dexter Lawrence like a top 3 guy at the position. And you moved on from him. And you are filling that spot with, veterans making $6.5 million a year. To act as if that's not going to be potentially a problem in their run defense, I think is a little silly. And I think that could create some problems. I also think you have to expect that the Eagles are going to be eagling. I expect the Cowboys to be better this season. I certainly expect my Commanders to take a step back from where they were last year. And I assume Jaden Daniels will have a healthy year and that team will bounce back. So, I think there's high expectations around this team, and with good reason. The only pause I'm trying to give Giants fans is Baltimore moved on from John Harbaugh for a reason. It is over. They could not make it work anymore with Lamar Jackson, with a very talented team. They were not able to be successful anymore. So I think everyone's excited because the last regime was so bad, and that is certainly a good reason to think that Harbaugh will bring instability. I'm just not quite ready to believe yet that this is a team that jumps to 10-7 or even 9-8, frankly. I see them more in the 7-10 conversation.
You mentioned how you wouldn't mind if the Giants lost every game next year. This is a team that might lose every game next year, and that's the New York Jets.
That's every year.
It's every year. Yeah, it's nothing different. It's a tradition unlike any other. They reportedly made an offer to Russell Wilson, which I find hilarious because they're like, hey, our quarterback room is terrible. What can help it? Russell Wilson. Surely that'll do the trick. But Russell Wilson has said he's mulling over that offer. He's also mulling over some potential TV offers. He's gotten reportedly some offers to be in the booth next season. So if Russell Wilson is not jumping at the opportunity to play for the Jets and he's instead looking at some TV opportunities, does that say more about Russell Wilson or the Jets?
I cannot believe the Jets are having this conversation. Like, being here in New York, we got such a good look at Russell Wilson last year, guys. Russell Wilson is done. There is nothing. Like, on the Dunometer, like Kirk Cousins is slipping into Dunzo land. Russell Wilson's living in Dunzo mania is running wild. He had one good game against Dallas last year early in the season. Of course, their defense was an absolute mess at the time. Beyond that, guys, he couldn't complete basic passes. That doesn't even include the fact that, God bless him, he had a great career, I think a Hall of Fame career, but he's also he's not taking any risks at this point, guys. He's avoiding hits at every play possible. There's no reason to have him there. Now, granted, after Geno Smith, this is a horrifying quarterback room. Their second string quarterback at the moment is Brady Cook. Cook is the right word because the whole quarterback room after Geno Smith is cooked. Brady Cook, the great Cade Klubnik, and Bailey Zappi. It ain't sexy in the Jets quarterback room, okay? But there's no reason to bring Russ in there. There's just not. You have Geno for a reason. If you want to develop one of the kids under him, great. But I don't see any upside to this, and I don't think any Jets fans want to see it. I think the place for Russ is in the booth. Russell Wilson, to me, guys, is one of those people who I feel like he never seems to get along with the locker room. Like, everyone thinks he's like kind of a weirdo, but I could see him being very good talking football. Like, I could actually believe that. It's funny. It's the exact opposite that I feel about Mike Tomlin. Like, I feel like Mike Tomlin is so good at all things football. I don't know that his personality screams to me, I need to see Mike Tomlin on my television. But Russell Wilson, I think, get that man in the booth and get him out of a locker room. I just don't think there's any gas left in the tank.
Peter, you are obviously incredibly well known for your work around professional wrestling. Cheap Heat is the great wrestling podcast. You know that world better than most. I'm sitting here with a wall full of 80s wrestling AWA figures behind me. So I love it. I'm into it. But here's my question for you. Ted Turner passes yesterday. We grew up around the Monday Night Wars, right? What did Ted Turner mean to wrestling?
Oh, man. Ted Turner meant a lot. I mean, without Ted Turner, first of all, wrestling on television obviously doesn't look the same because of what the Superstation was able to do with Jim Crockett, and then eventually buying WCW. But we're talking Georgia Championship Wrestling, so much different wrestling, all under the NWA umbrella back in the day, and those titles were run through Ted Turner Television. And then eventually he makes the deal with Jim Crockett, puts on Jim Crockett Promotions, and then eventually buys WCW himself. Now, he ends up obviously losing the wrestling wars to Vince McMahon, but that doesn't change the fact that without Ted Turner doing what he does, I don't know that WWE ever goes to the heights that it goes to. So, competition in the pro wrestling business is incredibly important. And now Ted Turner's properties, TNT and TBS, are doing that same thing in 2026 with airing AEW, who did a wonderful tribute. Tony Schiavone did a wonderful tribute with Sting last night to pay homage to Ted Turner. And when you look at it, as someone, and I'm a WWE guy through and through, but more than I'm for any one company, I'm for the boys and girls of this business having jobs and places to go work. And because of Ted Turner having these other outlets and those outlets being acceptable places for pro wrestling, to this day, literally right now, the business is thriving in a better way because of what Ted Turner was able to give to the business.
That's incredibly well said by you. Anybody, just go back and watch some of the WrestleManias from the mid-'90s and then watch 10 years later and see the impact competition made in the market. Peter, appreciate your time, man. You guys can follow him on Twitter, X, at Rosenberg Radio. Listen to him on SiriusXM. And, of course, Cheap Heat. Check out the podcast. We appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Dude, thank you so much, guys. I enjoyed it. Appreciate you.
Thanks,
Great
Peter.
stuff from Peter as he breaks it all down. Coming up next, Luka taking criticism from one wrestling icon. We'll tell you about it next.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side. How do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you can make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler. Under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield. Down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically. Correct. When you look at, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Jaylen Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because you'll get crushed.
Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, friend of the show, woo! Tweeting out, Luka, Please get in the game. Take a shot at cortisone. Deal with the pain. They're paying you $50 million a year, and you're not there. WTF? I hope Jeannie Buss trades you next year. Nobody wants a lame duck on their team. Them's fighting words from Ric Flair as he comes out and just throws it out. Woo! I'm going to just give all the woos I can. Spicy, hot, flame cake. Worthy of measuring that. So we're going to do what we're going to start a new thing here. We're going to call it the Richter scale. See what we did there? Richter scale, like Ric Flair, Richter scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, woos, how seismic was Rick's beef with Luka to you?
I don't even know what I would give it on the Richter scale because all I want to say is just shut up. Like, shut your mouth, Ric Flair. Delete Twitter off your phone. Put your phone away. Go take a walk. Maybe just go out and reflect. Like, just stop. Like, that is so ridiculous to say. Like, I mean, like, does he even know what Luka Doncic's injury is? Like, you just say, oh, just shoot it up and go out there. You'll be fine. You're selfish. I hope you get traded next year. Seriously? Like, do you want bad things to happen for the Lakers? Luka Doncic is one of the best players on the planet. He's hurt. Like, I think it's just put Twitter away. Put Twitter away. Like, to put that out there into the universe, I think is so incredibly toxic. You sound so dumb. You sound so uninformed in saying those things. I guarantee you, from everything that I know about Luka, everything that we know about Luka, he would give anything to be out there on the court. So to say that he's being selfish because he's injured and not playing, I think is so off base and so unfair.
I think it also speaks to different people from different generations in different sports not understanding wear and tear.
Could be.
Like Ric Flair comes from an era of, your body's banged up. You just take some pills, you take some shots, and you literally take some shots, and then you roll into the ring and you do it again. But that's also why catastrophic things have happened to so many wrestlers from his generation. So I think there's just a generational disconnect here, and this doesn't get a woo. This gets a woo, because this is a tough look. Like Luka has come out and said, doctors told him initially it could be up to 2 months that he's out, right? So just when you think about the fact that a whole room of doctors is saying, hey, man, you got to make sure you take care of this thing the right way. Unfortunately, this is one of those moments where Ric Flair, a little bit generational, a little bit just being a fan, a little bit not being in the room. Also, a little bit making Luka Doncic mad. I wouldn't want to see Rick and Luka in the ring at this point. All right, let's measure this one as well. Draymond, shocker. Austin Reeves. Now, this is a little bit crazy. They're engaged in a serious beef right now. We got big beef going here. All began when Rivers criticized Reeves for saying on his podcast that the Warriors' Steve Kerr, quote, hindered his career. And all of a sudden, we end up with this back and forth. Draymond telling Austin Reeves that his best days were in high school. And then Reeves responding to Draymond saying he's the luckiest player of basketball I've ever seen. What do we give? How many woos? Like on the Richter scale of woos, what's the beef between Austin Rivers and Draymond Green?
This definitely gets a couple of woos. It's definitely on the Richter scale. But first of all, let me just say, I'm tired. We're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. We've got a rat poop virus going on in a Carnival cruise ship in the middle of the water. Austin Rivers and Draymond Green's beef, I don't have time for this. This is definitely wooey, though. This is definitely on the Richter scale. And also, what is Austin Rivers doing coming for Draymond? Was this prompted by anything? Or did Austin Rivers just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to poke the bear and I'm going to, come for Draymond Green? I also think, if you live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw stones. Maybe just write that one down, Austin Rivers, for the next time that you're coming for certain players and how certain coaches have bailed them out in certain situations. Or help them out.
On the Richter scale of 1 to 10, this gets 7 Ricks for me. It gets 7. Woo!
7 Ricks.
Make you listen to that 7.
This is 4 for me.
Yeah, okay. It's a little more seismic than that. Maybe it's just 4 and then one really long woo. Here's the thing for me. I want this drama. I need this drama. I love this drama. Just not right now. See, the thing of it is, when the NBA playoffs are done, I'll take all of this drama. Give me something to talk about. Give me this storyline in the middle of, I don't know, July, and all of a sudden, we're having a feast with it. Give me this storyline when the Larry O.B. has already been hoisted and we're waiting for preseason basketball that we definitely won't care about, and all of a sudden, we're just desperate for something to talk about in the NBA lexicon. This is the sort of beef I need. So I appreciate the argument that's happening. I just think you two gentlemen have lost the plot because you've forgotten about the timing of your beef. When you're going to have NBA beef, you need to make sure it happens in the offseason because we like talking about drama during those months. We like talking about basketball. We only get a few months of meaningful basketball a year. Peter Rosenberg said it with us earlier on this show. Now that we're watching playoff basketball, we're reminded just how awful regular season basketball really is. We're reminded just how bad the takes are during the regular season because nobody plays the same during the regular season. We're reminded of the glory of playoff basketball. I want to live in that moment. I want this moment for once not to be about everything that's wrong with the NBA or everything that's wrong with drama or everything that's wrong between two grown-ass men that get paid a lot of money to play basketball. I need those things to happen in August. Pipe down, gentlemen, and handle this the right way in the offseason when we can spend more time talking about it. That's, by the way, not the only Draymond beef. You ready for this? Draymond was, if he wasn't a Tiger going after, somebody that maybe wasn't worth going after, he went after Sir Charles. He went after Charles Barkley. All right. He was on the NBA inside the NBA last night and got awkward because they were talking about, the legacy and the dynasty and the end of it. And then Charles says it always ends. Sports are for young people. Nobody wins when they're 37. And Draymond's clapback was, I think the goal is to just not look like you in a Houston Rockets uniform. If you don't know, if you aren't old enough to remember, Charles Barkley played the last few years of his career, including up to the age of 37, in a Houston Rockets uniform. How many Williams do we give this beef?
Ooh, this is like 8 or 9 on the Richter scale. Like, this is woo with a bunch of O's, exclamation point, and say it very loud, a lot louder than I would in front of a microphone. This is spicy and this is saucy. Careful, Draymond. Careful, because all those rings have gotten you awfully confident coming for Charles Barkley, because Charles Barkley averaged 16 points. You see right there, averaged 16 points as a Houston Rocket. Draymond Green has never averaged that many points ever at all in his career, even at the pinnacle of it. And the most points that Draymond Green has ever averaged in a season was 14 10 years ago. I mean, Draymond Green's been averaging 8 points, 7 points, single-digit points over the last couple of years. But all those rings and all those championships that KD and Steph and Steve Kerr helped you to have gotten you awfully brave to say some things like that. So this is spicy. This is, I'm here for this. It's a high rating on the Richter scale for me. But Draymond, careful what you say. As I just said, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. And Charles was much more of an offensive playmaker with the Houston Rockets late in his career than Draymond Green ever has been.
This is walking around the ring, strutting like Ric Flair does, doing the whole thing, finalized by the longest woo you've ever heard in your entire life. This is a 10 on the Richter scale for me. And look, the only thing I'd say to Draymond is you should be lucky enough to still be on TV and relevant in pop culture long enough for your career to be forgotten. Because what's happened here is we talk so much about Charles Barkley, the personality, that we forget just how damn good Charles Barkley, the basketball player, was. And I get it. I understand it's easy to laugh at the way the guys handled themselves on the show, and they've leaned in to personality first. And I get it. It's easy for everybody just to look at basketballreference.com and look at the ring count and suddenly say, well, that tells us something, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. Charles Barkley in his generation was an all-time great. Charles Barkley in his generation was absolutely somebody that was destination must-watch TV. I grew up in that era. And frankly, everybody stopped what they were doing to watch Charles Barkley. Even when he was in those Rockets jerseys, we were still paying attention to a team that he took to the Western Conference Finals. And the thing of it is, right now, it's great for Draymond to feel so good about his career, rightfully so. He's won a bunch of rings, and he's been part of one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history. I'm not taking anything away from Draymond, but remember, the longer you get, the farther you get away from your success on the court, the less people remember it. The harder it is today for people to understand what Michael meant, what Charles meant, what Ewing meant. The harder it was at one generation to remember what Bill Russell meant. There will come a day when nobody's going to remember Draymond Green for what he meant, and they're just going to look at his stat sheet. And when they just look at his stat sheet, because that's inevitably what everybody does, he will be forgotten. He'll only be remembered for his championships. And that's an unfortunate part of what happens. We forget how great Shaq was sometimes. We forget how great Charles was. Caroline, I won't allow the disrespect to Sir Charles Barkley, who was far better than he gets treated.
I mean, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to never win a ring. If Draymond Green never won a championship, what would we be saying about him? Not the greatest ever to not win a championship. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, Draymond's been part of great championships, but Draymond has never single-handedly taken a team to a championship. We will continue this debate tomorrow. 9 a.m. We'll be right here. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back, hang out with Yahoo Sports Daily. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.